just go ahead. All right. So that being said, what is going on, Sacktown? It's Sacktown Pete back at it again. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. As I previously mentioned, I do have a very special guest joining me. His name is Brenden. Is it Nunes or Nunes?
Nunes. Thanks for asking.
Nunes. All right. Wanted to make sure I did not butcher that up. So if I did, I apologize in advance. So Brenden, welcome to the platform. It's great to have you on board. Just want to show and share about a little bit about yourself as a background. So what do you do?
Yeah, I recently moved to Sacramento, I want to say about 3 years ago now, and always just been super into basketball. I had other teams I followed beforehand, but really just enjoyed the league as a whole. I played when I was younger. It was always kind of one of my comforts. So just searching for something to keep myself busy on a day-to-day basis. When I moved out here, I started covering the team and really fell for the team itself, but a lot of it is the fan base. Like just the community is so great. And obviously everybody in Sacramento is really passionate about the team, with them being the main thing seemingly going on in the city. So yeah, I really just enjoy basketball, and I tend to take a little bit more of like an analytical approach. I think try to get to more of the why rather than exactly what is happening. And yeah, still getting more educated when it comes to basketball and things like that. But I do my Kings Pulse podcast a couple times a week, and then I do some writing for the Kings Herald. So that is me. What got you started with the Kings? Just in the area? Or?
Oh man, I've been a diehard Kings fan since I was a little kid. Remember, my dad actually took me to my first game when I was in my diapers, man, at the original Arco at the time. And ever since that moment, from there on, we just watched Kings basketball growing up together, from the Reggie Theus days, from the Mitch Richmond days, and to the glory days of our what we're known for back in the early 2000s as Chris Webber, Bibby, Jason Williams. Actually, Jason Williams was my first basketball jersey. And it's just, I fell in love with Jason Williams and Weber. I was a little heated when we traded Jason Williams for Mike Bibby, but I think that trade worked out in our favor, I would believe. And from there, it's just been, the rest is just history. I've always been a diehard Kings fan since being in my diapers. Been doing YouTube for a little over a year now, and just wanted to be one of the voices to definitely get the word out for Sacramento Kings basketball. And through the thick and thin, it's been a constant change, as you know, the last 5 to 7 years. But I'm pretty excited for Monty McNair's regime and the staff that we have in place now moving forward. I'm hoping that Luke Walton can figure it out, especially this upcoming season. And I want to talk about the roster because we've been linked to Ben Simmons all summer long, and we're still linked to Ben Simmons. And I'm eager to see where that saga ends up being. It could get to a point where the NBA might be involved and steps in. But in terms of the Ben Simmons trade, or the trade talk around Ben Simmons, how do you feel about that? I wanted to ask you because is it more of a disappointment that if we don't trade for a Ben Simmons talent, because we've been knowing the fact that we've been linked to his name all summer long?
Yeah, I wrote something yesterday, and I think this is a little bit more of what it is for me, is that like I don't know where they go if it isn't Simmons, if Simmons goes elsewhere. Because to me, like there needs to be some pretty notable changes to this roster. Like I think there's plenty of reason for excitement going into next year, and there should be. Like I'm in that boat too. But I think like if I try to step back and be a little more realistic, like they're possibly a 10 seed. And that feels like one of the more optimistic outcomes next year, which is just not a spot that you want to be in. And unless you get some really crazy development from Halliburton, maybe another jump from Fox, which is kind of a lot to ask, but not out of the picture. If Mitchell is a future all-star, which I don't exactly project him to be, and I think is like also an outlier outcome, like if things go right, this roster could be enough, but I tend to think that it's probably not. And while Simmons has his question marks and has his issues that are totally reasonable, I'm more concerned with the free throw shooting than the 3-point shooting or jumpers in general. Personally, he also would come in as the best defender on this roster. I mean, he's one of the best defenders in the league. I think he finished second last year in Defensive Player of the Year voting. And in a Western Conference that's just filled with elite wings, having a stopper like that with his level of versatility, being able to cover the Paul Georges, and even also in moments putting him on the likes of Trae Young, you saw in the playoffs. Like everybody talks about how bad Simmons was in that series. he also did a decent job defending Trae Young at his size, which is extremely impressive. So I think for a team that just is so defensively deprived, I can't help but be really interested in Simmons. And I think that specifically, as long as you're holding on to Fox and Halliburton, like you have a decent core with him. Simmons is 25, 3-time All-Star. There still is a potential upside there to him. So I'm kind of just in the camp where I think the team needs more talent. And I don't know how much longer they can just wait for the next guy to be disgruntled and then chase after him.
And I'm with you on that. I really do believe that they do need to pull a swing for the fences trade. When I look at this roster currently right now, I mean, yeah, there's some nice key additions, Tristan Thompson, but they're not flashy pickups like a Tristan Thompson, Alex Lynn. One of the biggest concern and weaknesses for the Kings last season was their rebounding. You can talk about Marvin Bagley and his injuries. I get that. I feel like we really lacked a rebounding. We really need help in the rebounding department last season. And I feel like with the Tristan Thompson addition, he's one of the best offensive rebounders in the league. I think he's going to help in that department. But as far as defense goes, we all know about the defense. It's obvious that it was pretty bad. League worst last season and probably the worst in history. And I feel like, Luke Walton, as being the head coach, you're going to get all the praise and you're also going to get the criticism. And I feel like Luke Walton going into his third year this season, the previous 2 seasons, you've won 31 games each season. It's a big season for Luke Walton coming up. The goal is obviously to win more than 31 games, and consistency is key. And I'm really hoping to see this defense improve dramatically this season with the addition of Davion Mitchell. I know fans questioned the draft pick back in June when we selected Davion Mitchell, but as far as I was okay with the pick, I think he's a high character, brings a high level character, and he brings that defensive culture in his background and his DNA. And I think it's going to it can only help, not hurt the team. How do you feel about Davion Mitchell being drafted at number 9? And what's your take on Davion Mitchell? Because from media day yesterday was the first day of media day. And I swear every player that I came across and I heard about the interview, they mentioned Davion's name. They felt like they just think that he's been really impressive so far, really running games, pickup games with the team the last 2 weeks when players are coming into town and getting ready for training camp. They've said nothing but great things about Davion. So how do you feel about Davion Mitchell going to the Kings at 9?
Yeah, I think even knowing what we know now, Davion wouldn't have been my guy, but I wasn't exactly very shy about that at the time of the draft. I wish my reaction was recorded because it probably was the most overdramatic thing I've ever done. But I mean, I think that I get it a little bit. And how long have we been saying that we want the team to pick best player available despite any fit concerns? And I didn't have Davion as the best guy available, but if that's truly what they believed, then, I think they deserve some praise or credit for being willing to do that and take that risk, because it's undeniable that the fit is questionable with Fox and Halliburton. But it's still to be determined if Davion is in fact the best guy at pick 9. So I guess we'll see. I'm hoping it wasn't something that was short-sighted as a guy that maybe can contribute right away. But yeah, I mean, I think the reasons that you mentioned and that have been laid out a lot recently, we've heard culture over and over this offseason, and Davion is just the type of person that you want on your team. And for a team that, I think was understandably labeled as soft last year, Davion is obviously the polar opposite of that. A guy coming in with a ridiculous work ethic in the same position as your 2 stars should do a lot to push each other in practice. The whole iron sharpens iron. And I think that if you're Fox or Halliburton, you have to look over your shoulder, and Halliburton specifically, is this guy going to take my spot? And not in a way where I think they grow any sort of malice towards each other, but I think in a healthy competitive way that could be really good for all 3 of them. So I get those aspects. But I still am a little skeptical about the positional overlap between those guys. But I mean, Davion's definitely the type of guy, like I said, you love to have on your team, and he's super easy to root for. So not exactly complaining. There were definitely worse picks.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. How do you feel about the? I know fans and everybody around the team is getting excited about the potential three guard lineup with the Davion Mitchell, De'Aaron Fox, Tyrese Halliburton, all playing on the floor at the same time. Um, I'm sure we'll see that experimented as the preseason starts next Monday. We got the first game against the Phoenix Suns from the Golden One Center next Monday night. And how do you feel about the three guard lineup? Do you think that the talk is they can make it work? And I'm sure in terms of talent, they can make it work. But is that something that you think that this team is going to heavily rely on as the season progresses, as the season starts? That if it does work, how do you think that's going to work out as far as having all three of them out on the court at the same time, offensively and defensively?
Yeah, firstly, I mean, you're kind of my oh crap moment of wow, preseason really starts next week. That's crazy. Very
Yeah,
quick turnaround this offseason.
it's here.
Right as I got comfortable, like I felt like I was relaxing a little bit. Yeah, this is, yeah, we are here. I don't think that we see the 3 guard lineup very often. They don't have other point guards on the roster. So you're always going to need one of those guys out there. And I think that that will also lead to one of them sitting for a good portion of times, like at least one. I think there's often you're going to see 2 of them in different combinations. And I think we'll get moments of the 3 guard lineup because I don't see how we don't really. Like, I think that the whole fan base is watching for that. I think it's understandable. Like, you did just take this risk for Davion at 9, and they've talked about saying that as a possibility, playing all 3 together. So I think we see it in moments, but I think that it's the fan base is going to feel a little bit teased by how often that we do see it. And maybe I'm wrong, because I think it could be exciting, and defensively is obviously where the question is. I think offensively, they're just going to have a mismatch at one of those 3 positions. And the idea is that any 3 of them are able to take advantage of that. But then that's also going to be the case for opposition on the other side. So I think if they can have a peskiness to themselves on defense, and the 2 other bigs out there are really capable defenders, like not Bagley. I think of probably, Harkless or Barnes. And then maybe I think Alex Len is probably the best rim protector on this team. If you do something like that, they can cover up for some of the defensive question marks I would have with that lineup. But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting, and hopefully it's pretty quick. I'm definitely curious to see how either of Halliburton or Mitchell can defend threes, and if they can do that for extended stretches.
Yep. Yep. I'm looking forward to it. I definitely think that if it's going to work, it'll work. And let's hope that it does work offensively. And there's some questions on the defensive end there, especially when all 3 of them are on the lineup on the court, as you mentioned. But I think that if we do get a tease of what it could be, what it could ultimately become, and I think I'm looking forward to seeing how it all pans out with them 3 on the court at the same time. You mentioned Marvin Bagley. So I'm a big Marvin Bagley supporter. Obviously, it's very unfortunate that he's been held back because of injuries. It's always entertaining in my comic section and even on my Twitter handle when I talk about Marvin Bagley, because the fan base, as passionate as they are, they like to say critical things of Marvin Bagley when it comes to Marvin Bagley. So he's healthy. He's back in Sacramento. His name has been in the rumor mill the last season, as we know. And he's still a Sacramento King. So with that being said, he's healthy, he's hungry, he's ready. He's been working with Doug Christie on some defensive tweaks and probably retool his defensive schemes. How do you feel about Marvin Bagley going into the season? Do you think Doug can only help and hurt, but not only help his defensive schemes out? Is he going to be healthy? Is he going to be a double machine? Because the way I see it, we already know we got in De'Aaron Fox. We already know we got in Tyrese Halliburton. I feel like we haven't seen the best of Marvin Bagley just because he's been held back with injuries. And I feel like his career averages, they're 14-7, but I feel like we just haven't seen the best of him yet. And considering the fact that we drafted him number 2 overall in the 2018 draft, I'm hoping that there's potential in him left, and hope that he does shine out and ball out for this season with this. How do you feel about that going in with Marvin Bagley?
Yeah, I think that I'd be shocked if we have seen the best of Marvin Bagley at this point, barring any like continued injury issues, which, hopefully for his sake and Sacramento's sake and the entire league, really, like Bagley does still have phenomenal potential. It's just with each year that passes, you question, how much development time is he getting before he eventually reaches that. But still at 22 years old, like you said, those averages 14-7 are impressive, even though I think that some people could call them empty numbers at times. And I'm definitely guilty of doing that. But last year, like the big development is his 3-point shot, right? Like 34% from three after being really sketchy in that aspect in years prior. And he seemed pretty consistent from the corners, consistent and confident in that shot. So that was a big development. But the thing for me right now is that I just don't know what you get from Bagley consistently. I think that most guys on this roster, if you're throwing them out there, that this is what you're getting. Mo Harkless, you're getting defensive versatility and length, and he's not going to do too much on offense. And Harrison Barnes, I think you're just getting probably above average in every single category. Rashawn Holmes, that he's going to be a good role man and be relentless energy. And I just don't know when Bagley's thrown out there, like what we're getting on a night-to-night basis. And I just want one consistency. And maybe that becomes that 3-point shot. But then I think like paired with that, sometimes he did a little bit too much on offense at times, which is understandable because that's where a lot of his potential lies. And then, on defense, I just want to see, I guess, I don't know, there's a lot of places I could pick, I feel like, but maybe like really committing to moving his feet on the perimeter because he's really agile. And has some promising length, and they seem to be playing him a lot at the 4. And with all the bigs they have on the roster this year, that's probably where he's going to be for the most part. So, I think it's just about like finding consistency, and it's hard to blame him because it's hard to find that with all the injuries that he's had. Right.
Yeah. And it's really hard to blame him because of the nagging injuries. But I will say, like last season, before he got hurt, there's times where I was a little frustrated just seeing him hang out on the perimeter. I felt like in Luke Walton's system, he didn't really utilize him as much. And don't get me wrong, the player can obviously adjust, but at the same time, I feel like it's the coach's job to put their players in best positions to succeed. And I feel like there's multiple times where I just saw him hanging out on the perimeter, just waiting to catch and shoot. And I get the fact that his perimeter shooting has improved last season, and he had a career year in his shooting from the beyond the arc. But I feel like he just wasn't properly used, not having him in the paint as much as opposed to we're seeing him out on the perimeter. And I feel like, I hate going back in time, going back to Dave Yeager, Marvin Bagley's rookie year. We saw flashes. I was like, wow, this might be a good pickup considering the fact that we took him at number 2 overall. But I felt like Luke Walton definitely did not utilize him the best way he can. And of course he got hurt, which is very unfortunate. So I feel like this season, want to see him more in the paint. I feel like he's better in the paint opposed to being out on the perimeter. But I get it. The game has changed. You got to shoot, in this league to be on the court. And I really do feel like Luke can do maybe a better job of just utilizing him better this season. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that's probably a critique I have for Luke in a lot of different aspects. Like Buddy is the other one that stands out a lot to me. And I think, I would love to see Bagley be more aggressive, like at the rim. I think that the main way to do that is probably just like embracing physicality a little bit more, because I think that's another critique of Bagley. And I also get being hesitant to do that when you've had these freak injuries. It's not like it's the same injury over and over. Like he, for a guy that we're talking about, like not being physical and engaged enough on defense, he's fighting through a screen. He breaks his hand. Like it's going to make you pretty skeptical, or he breaks his finger. I think it was, it's going to make you pretty hesitant to do that again. Like I think of Willie Cauley-Stein, he had a hand issue when he was trying to block a shot at the rim. And then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, well, he's a little more hesitant to do that, which makes sense. I think anybody would be in that situation, or at least a majority of people. So I definitely get that. And I'm a skeptic of Luke, but where are you at with Walton? Like, what was your reaction when he was brought back, that it was announced that was going to be happening again this season?
He's from our players, they support him. They love him. I mean, the multiple 9-game lose streaks is what did it for me. I feel like, considering the fact that we won 31 games and we had those multiple 9-game lose streaks, that's 18 games right there. And I felt like the first 9-game losing streaks, I was like, I was just going through. I'm like, no, dude, this is terrible. This has to end. And then the second 9-game losing streak comes around. I'm like, there's just, I don't think Luke Walton makes it. I think he's let go of after the season. And I feel like, De'Aaron Fox coming out, making his voice be heard, supporting Luke Walton was a big deal, because anytime you're the franchise player, you're the best player on the team. Um, I get that constant change has to stop. And I feel like Luke Walton this year going in, I was a little surprised that he's back, but at the same time, just hearing De'Aaron come out and show support really made me realize that, okay, you know what? Maybe it is on the players that they got to do a better job defending the ball, play team defense, be more consistent. Because before the first 9-game lose streak, we saw the Kings, I think it was before Super Bowl that week, and they had the game in LA against the Clippers where De'Aaron Fox just took over, and they beat the Clippers. And we won, like, I think it was like 7 out of 8, I believe. I can't recall, but I know we were hot going into the All-Star break, and I'm like, okay, this is good. This is great. And this is what I meant by saying, you know what, Luke Walton gets all the praise and all the criticism because he is a head coach. And I feel like De'Aaron Fox coming out saying that, and then Tyrese following up with that as well. Like, hey, they support Luke Walton. It's not on him. It's not entirely on him. We got to do a job. We as players got to do a better job of playing defense and being consistent. So I'm not surprised after them coming out and saying that they support him, that he's back for another year, and Luke coming out saying that himself, that he's very confident that he's going to be back this upcoming season. And we'll see where it goes this season. Honestly, it's on, man. I mean, there's no excuses. Luke has a healthy roster. His core players are healthy and they're hungry and they're ready to make a statement. And I think that the time is now to do it, because your core is relatively young. You're in your third year going into the season. You've won 31 games the past 2 seasons, and you gotta be more consistent. You gotta be better. I think that the additions of the coaching staff, putting Doug Christie on the coaching staff as well, is going to only help defensively. It's good to have a defensive minded presence in a Doug Christie on your coaching staff. You have Alvin Gentry, and I feel like the coaching staff is hungry to make this work as well this season. How do you feel about Luke Walton?
Yeah, I think that what it comes down to for me is I think that there's a couple things you can point out as what I would say are probably mistakes or faults. Walton, like you mentioned, the Bagley thing, I think that Buddy is like my primary example of him being misused. Like, he had a career year under Yeager and then has kind of slumped during his time with Walton. And maybe that isn't all on Walton, but then you also look at his years with the Lakers, his 3 seasons, and he didn't make the playoffs with LeBron James on his roster. And I get there's other factors there. But then you also think of Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Julius Randle, Jordan Clarkson, Josh Hart, all on those teams, and they look a lot better when they go elsewhere. And again, that could be because of just natural development curve of those young guys. They were really young when they were on that Lakers team, and they were just surrounded by other young talent. So there's a lot of situations that might be Walton's fault, but it's hard to tell. And on the other side, where my real issue is paired with that, is that I can't point to a situation where I'm like, wow, Walton really optimized this player and made this guy better. So that's kind of where my struggle is. And maybe you could say Fox, because he just allowed Fox a lot of free flow and ability to just read the offense and make plays as he sees best fit. But I don't know. I think I kind of tend to lean towards Fox is just a really good basketball player, that was going to happen no matter. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of where my critique of Walton is that at this point, I don't exactly know what he's good at as a coach, in any aspect, like aside from the players like him. But Steph Curry liked Mark Jackson, Giannis Antetokounmpo liked Jason Kidd, and moving on from both of those guys was obviously the right decision for those organizations. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay, I can respect that. Totally there with you. You made some great valid points. And when it comes to De'Aaron Fox, he's coming off in a career year. He's going into his first year of his max extension that he signed last summer. So for De'Aaron Fox to take the next step into becoming an all-star, looking at his media day yesterday, his interview, he's like, you know what? He's not worried about that. He just wants to win. And I think that the winning will validate him becoming an all-star. And is this the year? I know we've been the last couple seasons, especially his second year under Dave Yeager, where the Sacramento Kings won 39 games, their best season in 13 seasons, and then they decided like there you go. But we're not gonna talk about Dave Yeager or whatnot, but we're just gonna talk about De'Aaron Fox. Let's focus on De'Aaron Fox. So is this the season where De'Aaron Fox becomes the all-star? Is this a season where De'Aaron Fox is a big part of the why the Sacramento Kings are successful this season? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I would already classify him as an all-star last year. Like, I know he technically didn't make the team, and that's what really matters. And I'm pretty sure what you're talking about. But like, there's a handful of guys in the league every year where I'm like, these guys are all-stars, but they didn't make the team. And, I think him and Trey are like the two that stand out to me last year. In 2019-20, there were 15 guys that averaged 25 plus, and 13 of them made the all-star team. The two that didn't were Trey Young and De'Aaron Fox. And yeah, I never mind. I don't want to butcher this random stat that Tim had, but there's something ridiculous about the amount of players that have averaged 25 and 7 and not made an all-star team. So, I mean, to me, Fox is like already at that level. And it's kind of ironic that he said he doesn't care about that. He just cares about winning, because the team winning is what's going to get him into an all-star game, because he's already good enough. So I think that if you are looking for a jump, though, which is still possible from Fox, the most obvious is the free throw shooting. He's talked about how, I want to say he hit like 92 out of 100 in practice and things like that. He mentioned that on like the JJ Redick podcast. But that's like the obvious one, because I think that he even could get more whistles than he has. 7.2 a game last year has him in the top 10 of the league. And he's one of the only guys in the top 10 that's like shooting under 80 outside of Giannis and Zion, which are two guys that I don't know how much you expect their free throw percentage to improve, but I think that with Fox's like improved 3-point shot, and I think he has a really good mid-range jumper, it seems like a little bit of a mental block. And I'm hoping that once he gets a little bit of a hot streak from free throw shooting, that'll just stick around. And if we can get that in like the 80% range, I'd feel really good about that. And then the other potential jump, what I think would be playmaking. And that's something he said a lot going into the beginning of last year, after he had his little bit with Team USA that didn't last all that long. But he said that Kemba was a guy he looked at a lot, and was talking to about improving his playmaking. So I think those are the two aspects. But to me, like, Fox is already that guy. And I think, I guess the main thing that would improve the team that also does have to do with Fox is just defensive engagement. I think like it was surprising last year. I mean, you mentioned how horrible the defense was, and everybody saw it, but it almost became like infectious, the lack of energy and effort on that end of the floor from guys that you wouldn't expect it from. Like, there were moments that Fox wasn't engaged. Fox sure like has a big offensive responsibility, but it kind of reminds me of Devin Booker. Like, Booker had that label too. And then you saw last year, like, oh, Booker's actually a pretty good defender. He's not amazing, but he's a good defender. He's definitely not bad. And I think Fox has potential to be like a really good point of attack defender and navigating through screens with like his slender frame and quickness. So I think that's interesting, and just being engaged on that end. If the whole team can do that, to me, Fox already is an all-star. So if they can figure out a way to get more wins and he's still putting up these numbers, I think he totally should be in the conversation.
Absolutely. And I'm 100% with you. I think the free throw shooting has to improve. Anytime you're a point guard, you should be at least 80% or above. And it's just my opinion. I mean, that's the only thing I have a knock on De'Aaron Fox last season, was just his free throw shooting. And I think he's poised to improve that. So I think let's hope that improves this upcoming season. And as far as being, you're talking about Devin Booker, and people didn't realize how good Devin Booker was when he got to the playoffs and he got to his playoff platform last season. And they all obviously made it all the way to the finals and lost to Giannis and the Bucks in the finals. And I really wish that people can pay attention to De'Aaron Fox. And I really am hopeful that once De'Aaron Fox gets on that playoff platform, people can realize around the league, like, hey, this guy is really, really good. And I really hope that he does get that moment, a matter of time, hopefully soon, but only time will tell. And how do you feel about, so it's Tyrese Halliburton. I enjoyed Tyrese Halliburton a lot last season. It was a fantastic pickup, considering the fact that we drafted him and he fell to us. And, players in the past that fall to us, we don't have a good track record of those players panning out. Ben McLemore, Thomas Robinson, whilst there's better options at the time on the board, of course. But Tyrese Halliburton, he's built different, man. He's different. Like, just like considering the fact that he's a rookie and obviously he played an extra year of college ball at Iowa State, and he's so poised. He's got a good all around feel for the game. And is he the starting shooting guard? We know we got Buddy Hield on the roster still. Do you think Tyrese is better suited as a starter, or do you think he comes off the bench with Davion? How do you feel about that starting backcourt? Is Buddy Hield's going to start? Or are they going to move over Buddy Hield to the three? Are they going to start three guards? What do you think about Tyrese starting?
I think he should start. Like, I think that he deserves it. Like you said, he really is like built different. He's got a crazy IQ to him. And at this point, like, I don't know what his ceiling is. And that's like one of the main storylines for me this year is what sort of offensive self creation can Tyrese do? And now that he's going to be, I would think, second on the scouting report, and teams have an entire year of understanding who he is as a player, where his spots are, that teams are going to try to make him uncomfortable. So I think that that's going to be a really big thing that I'm watching for with Halliburton this year. And yeah, I think he deserves to start, but I don't know that I'd bet on it. Like, it seems like, Buddy Hield said he's willing to do whatever to help the team win, but then he also said that, yeah, he feels like a starter in this league. So, I mean, and I guess I kind of get it, but obviously I'd prefer Buddy to be okay with taking a bench role and not feeling a need to throw some little sly comments every once in a while when that does happen, like we saw in years prior. So if it comes down to it, like, just from what we can tell from the outside looking in, the personality of these guys, Halliburton could care less if he comes off the bench, and Buddy seems to kind of feel a way about it. So I think, I guess for that reason, maybe you start Buddy over him, which I think is a really bad reason, but like, it's kind of what you're stuck with.
Yeah.
I would really consider starting them together, because obviously it's, Fox, Barnes, and Holmes are your locks, right? And then after that, I think Halliburton should be a lock, but he doesn't feel like he is. Let's say Buddy's a lock because he feels a need to start, right? I don't know who the fifth one is. Like, do you start Bagley? We saw Maurice Harkless start at times last year. I would be absolutely shocked if Mitchell started. So, I mean, to me, it kind of comes down to Bagley, Harkless, or Halliburton. And I think that Halliburton could be your best option there. So if the idea is, though, that you want more playmaking in the second unit, because that is a weakness of Davion Mitchell, is playmaking for his teammates, then I think that it does make sense to go with the starting lineup of Fox, Buddy, Barnes, Bagley, and Holmes. But yeah, it'll be interesting. It's definitely, I want to see more of Halliburton alongside Fox this year. I want to say something about half his minutes came alongside Fox, and I think it needs to be a lot more than that, because this is the duo of the future. I think they need to grow really comfortable with each other on the floor. So that's where I'm at with that. I want to see more of it, and I'm not too sure if he's in the starting lineup. What would you guess the starting lineup is?
I'm going to go. You made some great valid points there again, Brandon, but I'm with you, man. I want to see the De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton era start. It's now. The time is now. I want to see them get mesh with one another, get that chemistry, continue to build on the chemistry, and start both of them in the backcourt. I'm going to stick with Harrison Barnes at the three, just because he's a solid Mr. Veteran at the three. I'm going to go with Rashad Holmes is obviously a lock at the five. I'm going to go with Bagley at the four. I think Fox, Halliburton, Barnes, Bagley, and Rashad Holmes will be the starting five. And the reason why I'm going with Bagley over Harkless is because I feel like he's got a chip on his shoulder, and I think that I think he's poised to definitely play the best basketball of the season this upcoming season. I think that the only way to do that is for him to start. And
Totally.
I really think that he's in for a big year. I just don't. I'm hoping that there's no setbacks with him as far as health goes, but I feel like we would just be holding him back if he came off the bench and not start alongside with Holmes. And we saw flashes of that when he came back from injury. There's a game in Dallas last season. He just flat out beasted the Dallas Mavericks bigs down the paint. And the whole people questioning about, can him and Rashad Holmes play together? I think they can. I think if Luke Walton can definitely, maybe in some cases, have Rashad Holmes run off the baseline and hang out on the baseline, ready for a putback dunk or ready to catch the ball, and have Bagley, maybe sometimes the offense run through Bagley. I think we haven't seen that yet. I mean, we saw bits and parts of that, but I really do feel like Bagley will be the starting for opening night. And, shout out to Harrison Barnes, man, because I feel like we're talking about the 3 guard lineups. We're talking about, the core main pieces of the team, but he stayed solid last season. He was solid as a rock. I feel like he doesn't get enough credit for how he played last season. I feel like there was a big portion of games where the Kings won was because of him. He came through in the clutch, big moments. As you know, the Cleveland game where Fox was Joe Montana, and he throws that deep dart to Barnes, and he just throws it up, and when it goes in. But
Does that
he
mean you're
was
a Niner
solid.
fan, by the way?
Oh man, I'm a
That's a good
diehard.
thing.
Yeah, I'm a diehard Niner fan. We'll see. I'm still not over the Monday night loss, but I mean, I can respect Aaron Rodgers. He's one of the best to ever do it. But I am a 49ers fan. I do support the 49ers, and looking forward to seeing how the season progresses. So still a little early. Um, George Kittle's criminally has been underutilized so far, in my opinion, and I feel like I don't know if a quarterback change is going to get him to get more touches in the offense, but we'll see where it goes. I love Jimmy G. I love him. I think that the future is now, and I feel like Trey should be getting some reps.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
sorry to sidetrack you, but I don't get to talk Niners enough. So excited
no,
for a
it's
second
fine, man. It's
there.
fine. No, and I'm glad you mentioned that you're a Niners fan too, because it's like I want to see the Niners obviously do well, and I'm very passionate about the Niners too. But I feel like Niners and Kings are I want to see them succeed, because in the past, I've seen the 49ers win a championship when I was 5 or 6 years old. I remember that, and that was the last championship they won. And obviously, the last 2 visits in the championship they didn't win. So, yeah, it's very unfortunate, but I do want to see the Kings obviously just be relevant and be successful, because I've seen that from the 49ers, growing up and currently. But we'll see where it goes with the Niners. How do you feel about the Niners?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. Like I haven't watched like all that much football when I was younger. Like I took like a little mini break, I think right after the good Kaepernick years. And then I decided about 3 years ago or so that I was like, all right, I'm just gonna make sure I watch every single Niner game. Like I've never been super into football, but it's really fun to have a team to root for. And I think it was like also as I started doing my basketball coverage, which it made me grow a little bit out of like that fan feeling, which kind of sucks because it came more analytical. So just like searching for that fan feeling of just like being super emotional during games kind of made me go back to the Niners. And yeah, I mean, they're so fun. Like I
Yeah.
think just with how competitive they are on a game to game basis. And yeah, like you said, last Sunday sucked. I don't know what the heck that was in the first half.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I it's super fun. Like, and having a big storyline with the whole dual quarterback thing going on is definitely entertaining. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I look forward to it every weekend. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I look forward to it as well. And we got Seattle this upcoming weekend, and I think I'm pretty confident. I think we should be able to beat them at home. It should be a good bounce back performance, considering the fact that how the last Sunday night's game went. But that division is going to be tough. I mean, every team in that division, Seattle, Arizona's Arizona. They've looked really good, and the Rams are looking pretty damn good as well. But back to the Kings starting 5. So yeah, I'm going to go with Fox, Halliburton, Barnes, Bagley, and Holmes. So I do want to talk about this. Let me know how you feeling about this. So the Western Conference. You mentioned earlier that you got the Kings around the 10th seed, but obviously the play-in format factoring in this upcoming season as well. Can the Sacramento Kings ultimately make the playoffs with the current roster that they have? And if they're playing bound, which we anticipate they should be playing bound, I felt like they could have been playing bound last season if Fox and Halliburton didn't get ruled out the court. I feel like they had a very good chance of making it in the play-in games. Whether they would have beat those teams in the play-in, that's another question that we'll probably never get to answer. But this upcoming season, you got the Lakers, you got the Clippers, Golden State. They're supposedly supposed to be healthy. Klay Thompson's supposed to make a return at some point in the season, December, January. You got the Jazz, who had a fantastic season. You got the Phoenix Suns, who just made it to the finals and ended their playoff drought last year. You got the Dallas Mavericks, Luka the Don there, and you got the Blazers. That's 7 teams right there. And I'm not even talking about the Memphis Grizzlies. They made the playoffs last season, and that's 8 teams right there. Is Sacramento? You look at those 1 through 8. That's name. Is Sacramento in the mix? Are they the outside looking in, trying to get into that top 8? How do you feel?
Yeah, I think top eight's pretty, I don't know, I guess impossible is a tough word, but top eight feels hard. I think top 10. Um, and I also don't think I'd bet on top 10. Like it sucks, but I kind of like if I had to do my ranking, I'd probably play some 11. So that's where I'm at with that. And I think that what it really comes down to though is that they're going to be in a tier with Memphis, San Antonio, New Orleans, and Minnesota all fighting for the 9 and 10 spot. So they totally could be one of the 2 teams that comes out of that group. Like I think Memphis is going to be, they were clearly the best of that group last year, but I think that like losing Valanciunas is a pretty big deal, and they're going to have some offensive growing pains. So yeah, I mean, I think that if things go right, that absolutely they could be a team that is in that 9 or 10 spot. But I think you could also say that same for any other team in that group. So we're going to have to see if there is some sort of consistency this year, or where the big, stories that nobody is like considering right now end up emerging, because who knows, it turns out that Jaden McDaniels is a big difference maker for the Timberwolves this year. Or maybe one of these teams ends up trading for Ben Simmons, or, San Antonio's like Keldon Johnson is really improved after his Olympic experience or something like this. So, I mean, really any big improvement is possible throughout those teams. And we just have to hope that the Kings are one of those.
I agree with you. I mean, that's why the Western Conference is the toughest conference in the NBA. I mean, just based on seeing this last season, Memphis, catching hot at the right time, and then they get into the play-in, and then they ball out and they get that 8th and final spot, and they go on to Utah. They beat the Utah opening in game 1, but then Utah obviously came back and won the series. But I really feel like, it's crazy. It's pretty stacked, as it always is every season. And I feel like for the Kings to take that next step as a team, I do currently see them outside, looking on the outside, looking in the inside, going for the inside. And as far as playing goes, it's a realistic goal. I mean, they're up there. They should be around that 10th, 11th range. And like you said, the Spurs are the Spurs, even though they had a down year last year. The Pelicans, I mean, Minnesota, it's a lot internally going on there in Minnesota currently, but we'll see how they look. And like you said, these teams could make a swing for the fences trade, a Ben Simmons trade. Maybe that might change the outcome or the outlook of the team. And I feel like I'm excited. I'm happy for our players to obviously continue to grow and get better. And I'm a little more disappointed because considering the fact that we were linked to Ben Simmons all summer long, and training camp has started this weekend, we have not acquired a Ben Simmons talent. I want that narrative to change, man. That's what gets me. It's like, the narrative where, Sacramento can't get a big player. They can't get a big name. And I'm sick and tired of that. I'm fed up with that. I'm really pushing for that narrative to change. And I really do feel like, Monty McNair in the front office, can't blame them. They've tried to aggressive. They're aggressive with trying to get a Ben Simmons. They're also trying to get a rumored earlier this summer with the Pascal Siakam. Shoot, even Damian Lillard's name got mentioned in the rumor mill. But obviously, I wasn't thinking of that because I know how loyal and true Damian is as a player. And I just didn't see him asking for a trade out of Portland. And I feel like Monty McNair and the staff, the front office staff, I don't know when is it going to be. I don't know if it's going to be soon this season, or if it's going to be Ben Simmons, or if it's going to be another star. I don't know when that time is or when it's going to be, but I really do feel like the Monty McNair and staff will be rewarded with their efforts of trying to acquire a big name. And I want that narrative to change, man. I really do want that narrative to change. I know it's been a long time since the Kings have had a high profile name, and I just want that narrative to change, man. It's like every team has found a way to get a big name that come across those doors of the organization. And don't get me wrong, we've had big names through the draft that we built, but as far as like making that marquee swing for the fences trade, that has yet to kind of be done yet. And I feel like the Sacramento Kings will eventually pull that off and get a big name. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think McNair is that seems to be the plan for McNair, right? Is and a lot of these Houston guys, like we saw it with Gerson Rosas before his complications in Minnesota, like his swing for the fences was Andrew Wiggins for D'Angelo Russell, and it ended up being Wiggins and Jonathan Kuminga, which I don't know if you'd say that worked out in Minnesota's favor. I think the jury's kind of still out on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it does seem like that's what McNair is waiting for, right? Because there hasn't been notable changes to this roster. Like, I don't think it's very easy to look at this year's roster compared to last year's and be like, wow, this team is so much better. Like, I think there's aspects where they are better, but not to the point where it's like, oh yeah, this is for sure a playoff team. So and there's no way to me that McNair looks at this roster and is like, yeah, this is our future. This is the future core. You know, like I think it's obvious that they need more talent, and it's got to be top end talent. And there's only so many times that those players are available, and one's available right now for pennies on the dollar, depending on how McNair feels about him, and who knows what the asking price is. Maybe it's not pennies on the dollar, maybe it's quarters on the dollar, considering it's Daryl Morey and all that. But yeah, I mean, I think that I would guess that McNair is thinking the same thing as you, that there needs to be some big talent acquisition here.
Yep, I agree with that, man. And like I said, only time will tell when, and that moment is when it will go down, when it will happen. Like I said, if the Sacramento Kings can make a trade, swing for the fences trade for a name like a Ben Simmons, then it gets exciting and fun because you have a player of his talents and his caliber, considering the fact that he's 25 years old. He's a three-time All-Star, and he is an all-defensive player in the league as well. So I'm still hoping out for it, man. I got my fingers crossed. I'm glued to my Twitter, very active, man, on Twitter. Sacktown, I hope you guys enjoy this. Brenden Nunes, definitely want to appreciate you coming on and taking the time out of your day to, come on and just talk and chop it up, man. Really do appreciate you, man. Sacktown, I'll go ahead and link Brenden Nunes. You can give him a follow on Twitter. I'll link his podcast, all in the description below. And Brenden, man, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much again for taking the time out of your day, man. I really do appreciate it. And we'll see you. Maybe I'll see you around the Golden One. I do plan on being there the first home game of the season, Friday, October 22nd against the Utah Jazz. You have to keep me posted, man. We'll have to run into each other. So
I think that I'm gonna be there. So if I am, we'll have to meet up and say hi real quick. But yeah, thanks for having me on, Pete. And yeah, we'll definitely link up at some point during the year, man.
all right, sounds good, Brandon. All right, appreciate you, man. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for us. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day. Stay tuned. Take care. God bless. Keep pushing forward, and we will see you guys in the next video. Peace.